attention to excerpt us analysis. OSINT, OSINT, OSINT. Pay no attention to excerpt us analysis. OSINT, OSINT, OSINT. Pay no attention to excerpt us analysis. OSINT, OSINT, OSINT. Pay no attention to excerpt us analysis. OSINT, OSINT, OSINT.
What up, everybody? We out here. Yeah. Well, I like actually where that's going. I haven't heard the whole thing yet, but I'm here with my buddy OG. What's up, OG?
Motivate.
Good to have you.
What's up, Andreas?
It's a pleasure to be together. And this is a new idea that we're having. It's called Xirtus analysis. You know, basically OG's idea. He's pretty.
No, you get all the credit, man. It's I didn't even know how to pronounce Xirtus until just now. I was calling you Xirtus the entire time.
You know what though? I don't even know if I know how to pronounce it. I think
cool.
Xirtus is actually a completely perfect way to pronounce it, and most of my favorite people do pronounce it Xirtus. I'll just be honest with you. But you know what? I like the American pronunciation as well. So
yes.
As long as people are happy. Well, let me try. So this is hard to do. I want to have both pages open at the same time, and I guess I can't do that. So all right, we'll just start with that. Here is the first thing I wanted to look up in the OSINT. It is the Chinese researchers broke RSA encryption with the quantum computer. Did you see this? Have you heard about this?
What's the significance of this? I mean, so just I don't know. Maybe before we step off into that, I should introduce myself a little bit, right?
Sure. So okay. You used to deliver pizza, right? That was
delivered pizza. No, never delivered pizza. I've eaten a lot of pizza before, and it's hard to even talk about pizza now in the wake of Pizzagate. You know what I mean? Like you can't even mention it.
Waka,
even
right?
Even innocently, without it being a whole thing. Because did we actually get to the bottom of that? I don't think so. And so anyway, but no, I served in the military for a short span of time. I made music, a lot of music at one point in my life. And, maybe as time goes on, I can reveal more of my identity, who I am. But I mean,
make it weird. Why don't you? Yeah, no.
Yeah. For the sake of the podcast, I mean, please refer to me however you want to. And I want to say before even before all of this, I am very grateful for you having me on.
Of course, bro.
Andreas, I really appreciate it. I love what you do. I tune in a lot, mostly to like the Facebook streams, but I'm in there and I'm like chatting to no one because like I'm not sure where people are chatting, but I go in there and I'll like drop my 2 cents in there.
It's crazy, right? Because like some days I get a lot of people on Facebook, and other days I'll get a lot of people on Rumble. And then YouTube, it's been hit or miss. It's been pretty good recently. Every time I want to give up, YouTube is okay all of a sudden. But X has been pretty solid recently too. It is weird though that I get comments from one and then not another, and it's very frustrating that like they don't make it easier to combine all those things together. But yeah, so for
There's
the audience, I just want to say we're calling him OG-san, right? So that's the way I would like you to refer to my friend is OG-san.
arigato gozaimasu.
Ohio.
I don't arigato. Yeah, and then I ended up in Asia for 10 years and then got hired into on the dark side of it, it's the military industrial complex, right? And on the light side, where I like to stay, but you have to kind of accept that the shadow is kind of there as well. On the other side of the coin, it's called the defense industry, right? So like I was kind of like brought in there. I worked in some capacity as a contractor overseas, and then I got hired kind of deeper into the industry, and that's where I am now. And I have
Directly
you
in
know
the
I,
center of the Babylon
I mean, I
system.
could get into greater detail, but I think we're just going to be circumspect, and
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that's enough. So
I think you guys get the point. You know,
yeah,
that was way more than I expected you to share, by the way.
cool,
So don't
cool.
even worry. I mean, just guys, you get the point. If he's a friend of mine, he probably knows something. So
There you go.
we were going to talk about this article though about
Yes.
research, and we like that computers are fast. That's pretty cool. One of the things about fast computers, a faster computer can break a code quicker. So if you have a super hard code that would take millions of years to break, and a quantum computer can break it very quickly, then all of a sudden you might bypass, I don't know, national security secrets, right? I think that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the
Yes.
point we're trying to
Hey, I,
make.
I I wrote I wrote a song about this. I recorded with a producer named Zencat back in 2000. When was it? 2009 time frame, and it was basically study, research, science, and technology. Minds quantified, machines designed to battle me, shadow me, calculate strategy faster than me, arrive at answers automatically, massive capacity, processing rapidly, charging its battery off of the galaxy magically, happen to be tracking me in every quantum instance and whatever quantum reality. And essentially what it is, I mean, if Chinese communists, because if you go back to go back to the headline for a second.
Sure.
Okay, what D wave? Hold on. How did they get hold of a D wave? Okay, that's the paper. Okay, D wave. Are you familiar with D wave?
Explain to me what D wave
D
is.
wave was like one of the first to market quantum computers.
Oh yeah. The company D wave for Palo Alto.
Yes, yes,
Okay, yeah, of
yes, yeah.
course.
And the guy is like a real unlikely like quantum computer scientist. He's really cool. He's got some great interviews, and they had this squib, right? It all kind of revolves around this piece of equipment called the squib, and the squib is like whatever. It's a quantum annealer or something like that, and it uses some type of gas and blah blah blah. I mean, I would need to ask ChatGPT to kind of dumb it down, but anyway, they were first to market, and one of the first companies to get a hold of one of these D-Wave quantum computers was Lockheed Martin. And
Yeah.
Lockheed Martin bought one, and they were about the size of a walk-in freezer, right?
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, this was a quantum computer, one of the early quantum computers, and I'm wondering, how do Chinese communists get a hold of our technology? Well, I mean, forgive me for answering my own question, but they steal it, right? Like they steal everything that isn't nailed down because they're bandits. They're commie, bandit, thieves, honorless scum, and
You can see that they really programmed my friend here to believe in intellectual property. You can you know.
Yeah, I mean, you could have like, an angry Chinese communist being like, "Well, what about gunpowder?" It's like that wasn't okay. First of all, China is not whatever this thing is that's been infected by this parasite called Maoism or Marxism or whatever it is, right? Like commies, especially Chinese commies, always want to take credit for shit they had nothing to do with. But anyway, D wave is the
There's a lot of good points to what you're saying, even outside of that, because like I'd love to defend, for instance, the Soviet Union, because I love to do just I'm a contrarian. I just love to
yeah.
do that. I'm a bad person, but
Uh,
the John Birch Society, who I would also be like a youth rep for if I hadn't decided to be such a contrarian. I think the John
mm.
Birch Society is fantastically interesting and has amazing data
Holy shit!
on.
I used to live in that town.
Yeah, really?
I'm reading the Wikipedia. That is surreal.
Yeah,
No
in
shit.
Belmont, in Belmont, or in
Grand Chute,
in
but
Grand Chute. You were in Grand Chute, Wisconsin. Really, that's a
y-
lot more interesting
yeah,
because
nah, maybe it was Belmont. Actually, I think it was Belmont.
that connects to a lot of things going on. Anyway, point is, there's a great documentary and a series of books that they did that show how essentially the United States military industrial complex through the CIA were worried that they wouldn't have finances without an appropriate enemy and
Mm.
systematically gave every bit of technology that the Soviet Union had to them for decades, for literally most of the 20th century. Ball
Oh, it's
bearing rocket
so.
machines. Like, there were things that they couldn't just manufacture
Uh-huh.
themselves with the
Right.
plans. So they literally had to ship them from Washington, D.C., manufactured machinery that could
Yeah.
make certain ball bearing machines that could launch rocket missiles for
Uh,
satellites,
yeah.
just so
So
that we
they.
would have a
Yeah.
competition, right?
It's
Yeah.
so it defies it defies reason and good reason and logic. I mean, but and this was done. I don't know if you're familiar with the Hainan incident. Look up the Hainan incident. It took place during the Clinton administration. It was a this weird
How do I
incident.
spell Hainan?
Hainan is Hainan. Hainan is an island off the southeast coast of
Okay.
the territory known as China. And there was like I think it was a P3 submarine detector. Is that a P3? Yeah, EP3. This is anti-submarine surveillance aircraft. You see all that the blister of it's just it's just bristling with sensors. You look at the underneath in the rear and in the rear of the aircraft, you can see all of
Yeah.
that. That's this thing is a sub hunter. I think that's one of its missions. I could be wrong. We'd have to go to the wiki for that or chat GPT. But this plane was involved in this really weird, like if you read the article, like they got some debris in an engine or something, and it wasn't there was a collision allegedly, and they were forced to land. And then if you look at the disposition of the aircraft, what takes place at the end of this saga, uh essentially it was just like gifted to the commies, to the Chinese commies, the Chi coms. It was just given to
Hmm.
them.
And this is how
And
they were able to copy the EP3 was. Oh, that's so screwed. So
yeah,
like
so
basically because we got. Oh, that's ironic.
and
I'm
then but
just
they're
getting
like,
these
"Oh,
wrong.
it's an oh no. I'm having to land on the enemy island. Oh no. Oh no, you're taking my top secret aircraft now. Oh no." But it was like all on purpose. Right?
So
That's the
after
sinister take on it
we
anyway.
haven't gotten into weather mods yet so far. We're just talking about basic OSINT regarding like historical
Yeah, we
events.
started with the quantum, like the Chinese communist researchers revealed this week that they had broken RSA encryption with a quantum computer. Now, rewind maybe 4 years, and Google is announcing to the world that it has achieved quantum supremacy. Do you remember this word? Quantum supremacy. It was a buzzword, and it was strange to hear it because it's like, okay, what does that even mean? Google announcing to the world, and Google, mind you, was also another of the early purchasers of one of the D Wave quantum computers. It was Lockheed, Google, and I want to say IBM had one too.
Well, you have to have a quantum computer faster than everyone else's, but also you have to have a computer that's able to change the password faster than other computers can decrypt the password. So that's a major part of quantum supremacy when you're talking about intelligence and need to know.
Yeah, just imagine I can imagine just the code, like the keys changing, the
Like a
keys in the
baton
locks. Yeah,
race. Yeah.
yeah, like every second they're changing. I mean, and we're familiar with this for like two-factor authentication. If you've ever had an authenticator, you look down and it'll blink a couple times and then a new set of numbers will come up, right? But this is probably way faster than that. And anyway, a good guy to have on your show. I would love to recommend guests to you. Can I do that?
Oh, of course. You
Yeah,
know
I want to
that.
recommend some
Yes.
guests to you. A good guy to have on your show is a good friend of mine, CEO of American Binary. His name is Kevin Kane, and he's a prior service Army intel guy. I think no, he was a
Make sure that these people are happy to do this, of course. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, 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 absolutely.
Yeah.
And Kevin Kane is. I've given him shit about his product because I thought that it was like a WireGuard wrap, but he swears that it's not, and I believe him because I love the guy. He's a good guy, and I believe in the company, and we'll see where it goes. But anyway, he's good because he's very well versed. He's very astute. He's very erudite, and he can articulate. He can go deep with cryptography, and he'll explain it in ways that like are easy to understand. Not to say that like you or I are dumb by any stretch of the imagination, but there is something to being able to explain these things such that they could be understood. I paraphrase William Blake, which I think I heard. No, I paraphrased Terence McKenna, who was paraphrasing William Blake when he said, "If the truth could be told such that it could be understood, it would be believed." Right? Then there is like a certain storytelling aspect to this, and he's good at that. So I would recommend bringing him on. And who is that? Is that
Warren Zevon, which somehow seemed like a good cross between William Blake and Terence McKenna to me.
Yeah, dude. Warren
Werewolves in
Zevon.
London.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah, this is an '80s musician, Max
Some
Headroom
lawyers,
era.
guns, and money. You know.
Yes, yes.
All right, but American Binary, digital security,
Yeah,
encryption,
American
stolen
Binary.
data. A big part that the reason we were bringing this up is where did they get quantum computers and squibs, and the idea that they're achieving squibs probably through, I mean, espionage is an interesting thing
Oh,
right
look at
now,
that.
right?
Lockheed Martin is called out after D-Wave
Ba-boo!
advantage.
Ba-boo! Yeah.
So this is
That's
probably what it is at the beginning. I mean, is it a survey? I we need to run this through a translator because I'm just not. My Mandarin isn't what it used to be.
fine. All right, let's see here. Translate Chinese, simplified, inverse. Click on the
Yeah.
page,
Dun dun
and we're
dun
there.
dun dun dun
That was like the
dun.
long way to do it because I have like a translator button like up here, but it didn't show up. And
You
maybe
might
it's
throw
not.
it in like ChatGPT or use one of those machine learning translators like DeepL. Do
Well,
you have DeepL?
it's 15 pages long though. Okay, hold on one second while I make sure I get this right.
I
There
mean,
should be a way to just do it right in my.
go to DeepL, DEEPL.com, and copy paste it.
Deeple.com.
DeepL translations are like really good. I mean, this is what I've heard. I mean, Google's kind of the standard.
But will it do it?
Standard. Oh, a PDF? I don't know. I'm just copy the text from the PDF and drop it.
It's 15 pages long. That was the reason. I could just do part of it. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I'll do.
yeah. Just do the abstract at the top. Wait, is it in English? The rest of it? Is it just the abstract in Chinese?
It's a little bit of both. Okay, the abstract's in English. Hold on. Okay, so this part's in Chinese. This part's in English.
Oh. Okay.
Wait. Is it trans? I'm so confused because it's like the page.
Yeah,
size.
maybe it's translated.
Okay.
Quantum computing presents an exciting. Yeah. Hold on. Let me get it. How do I get rid of the chat? I'm such a fucking idiot when it comes to this. How do I?
Oh, click on the word comments on the side.
Oh,
and they'll go away.
Okay.
He doesn't want to see you plebeians talking. Be quiet.
Yeah. Quantum computing presents an exciting yet formidable challenge to crypt something security, the advancement. What does he say? Developments of D-Wave special quantum computers show a stable growth trajectory. Quantum annealing is the fundamental principle behind D-Wave special quantum computing. This paper introduces two technical approaches in the quantum annealing algorithm, using pure quantum algorithm and quantum annealing with classical algorithm to implement RSA public key cryptography attack. Okay, so I mean, I want to know, like, do they have one? Where are they out of? Shanghai University, Shanghai. So there's a glimmer of hope. I mean, maybe like the Shanghai gang has been deeply maligned by Xi Jinping and the Young Princelings and the Chinese Communist Youth League, which comprise kind of Xi Jinping's like base of power, while the Shanghai group has been
So you're
maligned.
telling me they're part of the French socialists? All right.
Are those
Fair.
the are there is there such a thing as a good socialist? Is that what it is? Because the
I
Shanghai
think
is like as close as you're gonna get to like a reform element.
everything is a kind of socialist if you really get down to it. Like at the moment that you have a sign that says "Adopt a Highway," you know, like you're dealing with. I mean, you're dealing with corporate socialism, and even George Bernard Shaw would say like lighthouses
Mm,
for trade boats are a kind of form of social service that keep trade incentivized before roads. So yeah, I think military, even you can think of military as social service. Social medicine only comes from the medic, paramedic, and military, right? So
mm.
the militarization of state is it's
Yeah,
just how far you go with it.
yeah. I've heard the argument. I've made the argument, like highways and the internet and all of these things being a product of like a some kind
I
of
was arguing with
thing.
myself earlier today though, like what matters is not the same as what's true. Like so I was in
Um,
traffic and a government could be looked at as a product and I was like, that's hilarious because obviously it's not true. Historically,
mm,
government has been an exploitive force that is, rapes and murders. It's like
mm,
criminal. But the idea that a government could be and should be and ought to be treated like in a modern world kind of fancifully
mm,
as a product is
mm.
totally possible. We could completely invert the system and say, hey, we can decide that we're paying for this, that you're my
Right.
waiter, not my police officer. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes, that's really, the correct approach. I think orientation. And I feel like in more ways than one, all his failings aside, and criticisms, right or otherwise, Donald Trump is like, you know, I think he gets that. Like we are our brand, and if our brand is shit, then we're fucked. I mean, it doesn't matter, how gifted we are with resources. If we're not going to use them or we're going to mismanage them or whatever. But anyway, long tangent. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
OSINT.
And I would also describe Trump as a Marxist, but short tangent. Sorry.
How? You mean because he's like a populist? You mean?
He's well, not just a populist, but he created essential works. He had direct planning, central planning. He had essential workers force. He's been essentially Trump was like Lenin in a lot of ways, especially during the pandemic. He reacted with direct
Well, wait a minute.
orders.
Was Trump like that, or were the people who were kind of like slithered in
No, I
to
think
the?
he created executive orders that allowed for small Soviet like governance by the bottom up, right? Like by states and by local groups. I mean, these are all things that were the destruction of the federalist system, and they benefited us tremendously. But you could
Mhm.
also compare them to the Leninist tactics, and I think that's ironic because everyone's trying to divide Kamala, whatever, from Trump based on their level of socialism, and that's like trying to divide the neoconservatives and the neoliberals or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's like ironically what this is about.
You wait. You classify.
Cheney's helping Kamala because the neoliberals and the neoconservatives have become one giant neo-Marxist pool, right?
Yes. So what is Trump in that equation? I'm trying to
So
understand.
so
What is
Trump is in a sense, I mean, well, he's his own thing, but also in a sense more like a Leninist because he's returning to with executive orders, and with direct action and with bottom up by creating governance that allows for individual governance, quilted governance. That's the original. This is non-Stalinite policy, where the neoconservatives are essentially Stalinites. It's just a nuanced argument over how to mismanage the funds. I don't think it's
Yeah.
completely perfect. I'm not saying that I think Trump is perfect, but it's a completely different argument he's making objectively than what Kamala is doing. Right? Kamala is pushing for the same thing that's gone on in
Yes.
the past. That
Ugh.
the Dick Cheney and Obama when Dick Cheney and Obama are on the same, they are the same thing. Like that
Yes.
clearly. That's yeah. I don't know. That's my point.
Yeah,
Sorry to tangent so hard.
they're
I'll try not
harbingers
to.
of darkness. It's the forces of good versus the forces of evil. Not to put too fine a point on it. Like obviously there's nuance, right? I still don't I can't get over the fact that Cheney, you know,
Right.
what the fuck? Like
Openly.
yeah,
People's mothers, my mother, right? It's just crazy. Like people could just be like, "Oh wow, Cheney gets it." You're like, "What's
I
happening?
know. Yeah. I'm
What's
feeling the
happening to
same
you?"
thing with my mother. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
it's crazy. Yeah, it's amazing.
I know. They don't the boomers, many of them they don't get it. These liberal. I don't
So
know.
I did well. Okay, I don't know. I'm sure that someone, if anyone in the chat knows better, I'm listening. But I did find it able to be translated, so it is talking about the 4-bit serves demonstration for the algorithm. Then they seem to have pretty convincing evidence that they're able to successfully accomplish this, right? And they probably have been able to do this for what, over a year, and this is only information that's been produced recently to prove it. But
So did they get their hands on a D-Wave computer? I see D-Wave
yeah,
all through that thing.
that's clearly what they're saying. They have the D-Wave computers, right?
What the fuck? How did that happen? Why did it happen? What is going on? Why do we give them the totalitarian force, unlike anything the world has ever seen, at a scale that has never been even thought to be achieved? And they're looking. They look. The DNC, as their wet dream, is to roll out a system of control modeled after the CCP worldwide. That's what they want, and it beggars belief that we're in this situation time after time after time with just like giving away technology. Like we should be embargoing, tariffing the shit out of them, boxing them in. Like I'm pretty much convinced of this, Andres, and talk me off the ledge if you will. But
Well,
I
do you
just
see the benefit of Glasnost? Like, there's maybe a idea that removing all of the encryption leads
mm,
to further transparency, and if everything can be seen, then
uh,
I mean every movie I've seen recently, I'm thinking like Hunter Killer, the submarine movie, right?
mm,
I don't know if you saw that, but
no,
basically there's like a point where you're in a nuclear submarine and they're in a nuclear submarine, and
mm,
everybody's got the buttons with the nukes, and we're all gonna blow each other up or
mm,
not, you know. I think they're kind
mhm.
of trying to do that. They're like, can we just get to the point where it's everything is so transparent it won't work anymore, and we have to just, there's like
Right.
maybe like 6 submarines that are fancy enough to move past that only we control. Like it's just
Yeah.
that level of supremacy means that all is seen, all is heard, all is
Just
observed.
ultimate transparency, right? We're
Yeah.
living in a
Post privacy,
in a in a
post
wire
personal
framework.
identity. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think maybe that could be a harbinger for good. If
That's their goal, right?
I mean, is it like, yeah? That's the thing. It's like it's the knife that cuts both ways, right? Because I think that within the mind of the Chinese Communist like party, hardcore party devotee, there is absolutely ambition to dominate the globe. I mean, they are ideologues like we think that like like Muslim extremists, like religious extremists or whatever, like this is like kind of the archetype for an extreme ideologue or what have you. But these guys, they go to like levels. It's like it's like I don't know. It's like
They're
Nazi
also
Germany crossed with fucking radical Islam. Like they're so devout.
but they're also not, right? That's the thing. You also
You
have
could say,
Bailan.
yeah. I mean,
You have
the
like
po- the
children not breeding. They're letting it rot as a like. What kind of culture has "let it rot" as their slogan? I don't know. I see
mm,
the end. I see the end of China had a major plague a century ago, and
mm,
maybe this is something other than just a normal plague. This is another way that China changed. I mean, and this is what I see a lot of the time. I mean, a lot of the countries in Europe 100 years ago
mhm,
don't exist anymore. A lot of the people that used to live in what used to be the countries of like Tibet and Uyghur region,
mhm.
things change really fast, man. Things change real fast. China could become, I mean, I hate to say it like that, but West Taiwan could become something else again, real fast. Like it doesn't have to be what this is the thing. People pretend that China's a 5,000-year-old one-stop shop that's never changed, and that's just
Mm,
not realistic. It's like
mm.
it's decades to a century old, depending on how you look at its
Right.
revolutions. You know,
Well, at least
and
the PRC is like barely 80 years old, right?
right, and even the PRC, I would argue is not the same PRC that it was. Also,
Mhm,
like I would say, like
mhm.
1980s PRC is a completely new PRC after genocide, famine, industrial revolution, iconoclasm. There's a lot of things that change it over.
Mm. Is there a continuity? I mean, I don't know. It's like
That's the question. I
Theseus and
don't think there's
shit.
any. Yeah, I don't think there's really any continuity because they burned all the pieces and they turned it into something other than a ship.
Right. And now all they have left to arbitrage is like their captive slave labor population,
Which is dwindling really fast and not reproducing.
Okay, so now I'm gonna say I think all of these Asian countries are intentionally misreporting population
Okay.
data. I think, and I
Elaborate.
like having lived in Asia for quite some time, like you'd go out wherever you'd go, you'd see strollers everywhere. Like I think that there's like an aspect of like Maskrovka. Isn't that it? Isn't that the Russian term? There's like this aspect of like deception. Like all war is deception, Sun Tzu said, right? And of course, what am I going to do? I'm going to feign like Deng Xiaoping said, what did he say? Hide your strength and bide your time. Right. I think that there's a lot of this going on in these cultures where they're like playing the game, the great game, and in I don't want to say higher dimensions because they're fucking bad at it. I think we're pretty good at it, playing the game in all these multiple dimensions. But I mean, my point is basically that I don't buy the population. I don't buy the birth crash numbers. I don't buy any economic number coming out of communist China. And established economists, here's my appeal to authority, like Balding. Look up Balding's World on X. He's fucking awesome. He lived in China. He taught at Tsinghua University for a while, and then he got the fuck out of there because there was actually like in the early aughts, there really was like this hope that communist China, the Chinese Communist Party, was going to continue to go down the path established by Deng Xiaoping of reform. Granted, Deng Xiaoping also ordered the slaughter of all those kids at Tiananmen Square, but there was like there was a transformation happening economically in China um, after Nixon and whatever, and then when you get to Clinton, and then they're given most favored nation status, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there were great aspirations that significant reform was going to come, and it never did. We thought, the refrain is that liberalization of Chinese communist markets which they control with an iron grip, would lead, inevitably to democratic reforms that never happen. I'm kind of riding the roller coaster. Anyway, where were we? It's I don't know. We got in this whole communist China conversation, and we could take it so many different ways. But I mean, I think that they're laser focused on dominating the globe, and I think they have confederates in the Democratic National Committee among Democrats. I think Democrats play this coy game of, oh, we don't like those Chinese communists. Like Nancy Pelosi will go to Taiwan, and like whatever. I think it's all a dog and pony show. I think that they're actually aligned at a much deeper level than I think people are willing to admit. And just kind of full circle back to the WEF. But we could talk about other things other than communist China. It is kind of like my pet project. I like to talk about it a lot. But are you there? Hello?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening.
Okay.
I'm hearing you
You're a
worry
great
about China.
listener.
Sometimes.
You are a great listener.
It blows my mind because people never tell me that unless I'm doing a show. In real life, they're just like, Andreas, shut up.
Mhm.
But you know that. What about Russia? Do you want to talk about Russia?
What about Russia? I mean, artificial intelligence, OSINT. Is this MIT? What is this? The Alan Turing Institute with the MIT font. So they're using the MIT Media Lab font. Is this an MIT based? Is this a Boston based organization?
Citizens.
I mean, Turing is from England, so that wouldn't make sense.
From UK. But
Anyway.
talking about AI looking into Russia in Ukraine. I think they've also been studying Telegram and TikTok and everything else like that, shifting information. There's just so much more. I find the Russia-Ukraine situation interesting to me because it's such a fake information war. It's not so much about lack of information. It's just the excessive amounts of fake information. And that's kind of in par with what you're talking about with fake numbers for populations.
Yes.
Everything you see, and I remember this especially from like Soviet and Yugoslavian propaganda, and then of course in American media and Hollywood, the way you frame a celebrity politician to make it look like they have a giant crowd when they don't.
Right.
The same thing you do when you have crisis actors holding a Tostito bag and Wag the Dog.
The toppling of the statue of Saddam Hussein in Iraq, where it was all tight shots, and when you zoom out, there were like 4 people there. They tried to make it look like it was, I
don't know how many of you have Telegram apps where you look on Telegram at all of the footage. You might be getting in a group that has lots of Russian-sided footage. And the Russians will be like, look at all the Ukrainians killing innocent Russians and marching them to their death. And then you've got, Russian villages in Ukraine and they're killing them, right? And then you have the Ukrainian ones and they're showing the Russian ones and they're same. And some of them are real, I'm sure. I'm not saying that they're all fake, right? I don't want to be like Sandy Hook here, but a lot of the Ukrainian and Russian footage that they're putting on TikTok and on Telegram particularly, where they can put very graphic stuff, is like art house horror film, like David Cronenberg level art house horror films. There's literally it's essentially bang bus sex films that people are being paid to make that make it look like they're doing more than they're already doing, right? And I think part of it's because if it was real, it wouldn't look as real. So on top of the suffering that's actually going on, because I'm sure there's legitimately, I'm not questioning that people are dying and being hurt all the time. But on top of that, they're making fake media all the time, which is designed to distract people because then they can say, well, there's all of this going on over here. And it's not just to confuse you, it's legitimately to confuse the war effort, right? Like this is the Sky King, what was his name? Like the Ukrainian ghost plane.
Oh, the Ghost of Kiev.
Yeah, the Ghost of Kiev, right? Exactly. Yeah, so the Ghost of Kiev, I'm pretty sure is fake, right? Like I think we all know that.
It was completely fabricated. It's like the white helmets in Syria.
Spoiler,
Do you remember the white helmets escapade in Syria,
Bro,
where
but we're
they
all the ghosts of Kiev.
remember? Yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
right. Yeah, I'm the ghost of Kiev. No,
Yeah,
I'm the ghost of Kiev.
the ghost of
It's like,
Syria, the ghost helmets of Syria. I haven't thought about the white helmets of Syria. I haven't thought about that in a long time. Is that
okay, you know how many times they tried to Saddam Hussein Assad? Like it just
yeah?
became inoculated against it at some point, and they were constantly trying to say, "Oh, he used gas or he used chemical weapons against XYZ people." And they were, it was just, this was Obama era, and they kept forcing, they kept trying it. They tried it like 3 or 4 times, and I don't know, for whatever reason, the international community just didn't bite, and Assad was able to hold on by a fingernail. But then fast forward, and you have like, the tribal war, and then you have like, like Assad fighting ISIS, and ISIS fighters being repurposed by Central Intelligence to like try to topple Assad. And then the white helmets were like, they're like filming, and you see the same shit in fucking Palestine with like these fake crisis actors like running out there and like pretending to be blown up, and then they're like, they think the camera's off, and they're like moving around and like smiling and laughing about it and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think the people that are like who think that they're so clever with with these information operations really realize how corrosive that kind of activity is to them being, engaged in good faith by people who believe them, by people who think that they're being genuine. You know what I mean? Like, there's like this subtle layer of, I don't want to use Colbert's truthiness, right? His stupid word, truthiness. There's this layer of genuity. I don't know, what would you call that? There's a layer of like reality that's unforgeable. How do I say it? You cannot fake it, and people pick up on that shit.
Right. Authenticity versus altruism seems to be a big part of the pendulum swing. Like,
Mm,
it should be like this, but it is like that. That kind of is the
mm,
argument every day.
mm. Yeah. And like I get it, like they want to drive the point home, whether it's like the Ghost of Kiev or the White Helmets or whatever. Like,
Bro,
like you
we
said,
are all the ghost of Keep. We are all. I think
yes,
that's the beauty. It's like Santa Claus. Like if you all, it's the spirit of giving.
right,
And
right, 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 right,
the
right.
thing is, if you really build an egregore, it will come. Like we become.
Yeah, dude, wake
It's
that up, dude. Talk about the egregore. We need to get Pat Ryan on here. Have you had Pat on yet?
no, that would be good. I would be into
Holy,
that.
do you know who Pat Ryan is?
uh, Representative Pat, like, or is that what we're talking about?
No, 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 no. Pat Ryan of cybersecurity fame. He's one of the leading like pioneers of what this is how I will describe Pat as one of the leading pioneers of the emerging field of psychosecurity. And I mean, he's a Blade Runner trainer. Like, I feel like if you read Pat's writing, look up the Butterfly War and take a gander at that. Pat is like, in terms of tradecraft, the fact that like he's not CIA is like is bad for our country. Like like Pat is the type of guy that you would want, in the intelligence community, hooking and jabbing, for the United States, for our for people, for Americans. Um, the Butterfly War, Pat Ryan. Now that's the Butterfly Attack. Is that it? Yes, that's it. Pat Ryan. I mean, this is just one thing. You could also look up blackmail inflation. Look up blackmail inflation. That's one of his more recent concepts. Pat is deep. That's another. So you got to get Kevin Kane on. You can get Pat and Kevin on because they both know each other. It would be good repartee. It would be good, uh, good radio or podcast or whatever.
Into it. Black Stoa,
Yes.
blackmail inflation with Pat Ryan. Okay.
Yeah, check him out. Check him out. He's doing a lot of this stuff in psychosecurity. He's not so much into deception detection, which is kind of like my forte. I'm really interested in, you know, like the Blade Runner mentality, right? What is the Blade Runner? The Blade Runner is like a special kind of like whatever, specially trained detective who is trained to be able to distinguish between artifice and reality. And Pat's not so much interested in that as he is in the egregores and the these other features of like mass hypnosis and what is it, mass psychosis, mass hypnosis, whatever,
Both.
mass formation psychosis.
Mm.
So I don't know what this is. Butterfly attack.
I think that was the wrong one. The butterfly attack was wrong. Butterfly war was the right one though.
Yeah, butterfly war. And anyway, he's good. Bring him on.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you can basically manifest something that people become the thing in a generation or less, right?
I
And I think
believe
that's the
that.
point. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, I believe that.
and Ukraine, like, this is the goal. Like, they told you what they wanted to become, and they did it. Like, I mean,
Mm, I mean, did they? I don't know. Like, what did they want to become?
I mean, like, they wanted to become. Well, I don't know. First off,
I mean, what
they
did?
saved a lot of people's lives because they drained all sorts of resources from the potential World War III that we were expecting to have with the uranium one
Good
deal.
call,
It's
Andreas.
like
Good
it's
call.
just it's just a it's a junkyard full of drones, and I mean people die, but again, it's like a Turing test of how few people can they kill while
Mm,
exhausting every country of all their
mm,
resources before the war, right?
yeah, the minimum descriptive length. It's the
Dude,
Kolmogorov
I feel
complexity
like there's a reason
war.
why it's the ghost of Kiev, because it's like the Phantom Menace. You know what I mean? It's
Mm, mm. Oh, the puns just keep coming, man, dude. Just you're knocking them down. I'll line them up. You knock them down. The
fair enough.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still feel like there has to be a reckoning with communist China. Okay, and the reason why I keep picking this scab, Andreas, is because you know Americans have been murdered by Chinese communist fentanyl. They sent over PLA chemists to teach cartel how to synthesize it. They've been pumping this shit into our country. And you could say, "Oh, but what about the opium war?" It's like that wasn't us, okay? It really wasn't. That was the Brits. If they have an issue with the British, like why aren't they pumping fentanyl into England? It's because England has already collapsed. Maybe they already did, like in the train spotting years with heroin. And
Yeah.
we did nothing to deserve that. And I'll hold by that. We've had hundreds of thousands of Americans murdered by the Chinese communist fentanyl chemical weapon, and we just keep getting hit with this shit. You know what I mean? Enough is enough. We need to stand up and say, you know what? No, like this is gonna stop, and it's gonna stop like the day before yesterday.
Yeah, I really I think a lot about it, and I still don't have the perfect thought to articulate on the fentanyl crisis. I mean, a big thing that I feel, and I'm not saying this is right, but yeah, I feel that it's interesting that we have people that have become so they've lost so much of what makes them American, right?
Mm,
American citizens, and those people seem to be easiestly replaced by refugees who've come from war-torn nations, which admittedly, whether the United States or American military industrial complexes that we've somehow been involved with through banana republics from the colonial
hmm
powers, somehow something has happened that has caused these people to be refugees that were somehow not, I would say, as citizens responsible for, but
hmm
we're definitely the house slaves of the masters who did it, and so to watch Haitian refugees who are often trying to escape that, and they're a lot of the time far more conservative than these woke blue-haired Americans that are dying, right? I see that also. And I see that very quickly within a generation you'll have new Americans because these Haitian kids are going to be new Americans next generation. If they're raised in America, if they're raised in the same streets, they're eating American food and everything else like that. Then eventually you just have new Americans. And if they, I don't know, will they stay conservative or what's going to happen? Who knows? But you have a new conservative replacement that breeds, they're going to have 6 kids that are conservative, and that's gonna displace anything that was super liberal or woke or Marxist or culturally.
This is like the Pope Francis ideal, like, oh, we should accept the third world. I feel like there's an aspect of that is valid, but there's also like a lot of truth to the statement: import the third world, become the third world. Like, the way that it's being done is so mismanaged, and I don't want to like needle it too much, but like,
No,
just
the
like take.
gumdrop thing is a great example. Yeah,
Well, like what's happening in Ohio, right? Where they
yeah,
have they brought 30,000 Haitians into a town of 50,000 people or 60,000 people, whatever. Like,
yeah.
that's insane. Like, who is making the decisions in the government about where to put people? I would love to know.
That's what I mean. Like, it has to be intentional, and so you have to wonder how brilliant of a decision is it? Is it kind of brilliant? Is it stupid, or is it
Mm.
super duper brilliant? And it might be one of these kind of super duper brilliant people who is thinking to themselves, "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to do it this way. Here's our plan of attack." I don't know
Mm.
if it's necessarily because they're sinister, though. I think it's literally because they think this is the only way to save America, to inject some French cuisine and some conservative stock into America. But you've seen this video, right? The gumball
Yeah,
video.
it's a great video.
I think everyone, if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It just teaches you what happens when you try to take a cup that has a small enough spot and you take a billion gumballs and fit it in. And guess what? It doesn't fit. It just kind of
Yeah.
displaces everything. Right?
Do you follow James Lindsay?
Yeah.
Like, he's in this beef with Tucker, and like I would hope that they could find some way to resolve it. I'm not sure who
Wow,
started
did
it.
I get upset and unfollow James? I'm sorry. I followed him
Uh,
again. What's wrong
James
with me?
blocked me, but that's all right. I still love James.
I love
Uh,
James. What did you do to? Well, I don't know. He's a
I
little
I
autistic, I guess.
he's yeah. He got emotional because I have like this staunch no blocking
Hmm.
thing. You know my no blocking thing?
No, I
I'm
didn't
kind
know
of
that, but that's
famous for
cool.
no blocking. Like, I
That's
feel
nice.
like
I don't
people
block
who
either. You know.
the
Yeah.
first person he who he who blocks first loses. I feel like
Yeah. Right.
it's like
Yeah.
you're like moving to get out of the way, when in fact, like, no, if you are, based and you're grounded and principled, you are the one they should block. Like, they should be the one trying to block you. I feel like blocking is an admission, it's a submissive act. It's an admission of defeat. I feel like, on a level that I don't feel like a lot of people know. I'm glad that you don't block, because it's like, we don't block. Like, we are the danger, Skylar. Like, you know what I mean?
Clearly.
So yeah, that's how I feel. But
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
so
Well,
a
I
lot of
I
people
like
block.
James. I think James probably just didn't think I was famous enough to talk to. Like he was talking. He was like talking to me. He was enjoying talking to me, and then I think he realized like it wasn't gonna really like do him any favors. So
Yeah, there's an aspect to
just to
that. He
call
is
him
cloud
out, just to
chasing
call
in
him,
some.
just to call him out on a little bit of
Yeah.
that, on a
Well,
little
I
bit of
think
that
he
shit.
does that. Yeah, he had this movie come out, like Wolves in Lambs Clothing or whatever. I haven't watched it. I'm sure it's good. But I bring up James Lindsay. Why did I bring him up?
Because he hates
Oh yeah, no, no,
Marxists.
no, no. Because James is good for this, like, scholarly examination of the historical record with respect to communism. Him
Yeah,
and his buddy,
that's good.
that wrote The Queering of the American Child. I've forgotten what his name was. Lance something. They really do a deep dive, and they'll go in down. They'll grab the manuscripts from Marx or Lenin or whoever it is, and they'll point out that, like, this, like, radical, like, open borders policy that Kamala and the Democrats are advancing, like, this is established communist doctrine for how to, you know destabilize a country and overthrow its government and replace it with a communist dictatorship or whatever. Like this is like
Right.
in the writing, you know.
Yeah. No, I think it's fascinating. I wish people really spent more time studying communism, or at least the attempts to implement it,
Mm.
because it's fascinating when you look at like the history of the Soviet Union. Part
Mhm.
one. Let me have. I got a book for you here.
Did you see Grimes's defense of communism? I mean, it's kind of compelling, right? Like
Oh,
if it could be.
you could easily defend. Imagine you were from Russia, like you would.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like you would just like you could. One would do it if you had to, and it's not that different. It's really not. If you look at the United States and how during wartime corporations were demanded for wartime effort, and
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
often that happens every generation. Realistically, it's kind
Mm.
of a farce to pretend that the United States isn't a socialist country. It was just an argument over here over whether we follow, Trotskyism, or which is really the neoconservatives were a bit more into Trotskyism and self governance and like a decentralization of state,
Mm.
and the Democrats were more into Stalinism. And at the
Mhm.
time, Stalinism wasn't associated with gulags, and it was incredible to people. They couldn't
Mm.
accept it. The idea that
Mhm.
Stalin could have done, they're like, no way. I mean, okay, maybe a little bit because it was another time, but people really didn't want to accept that Stalin had done all the things that he had done,
Right.
because he'd also done some pretty incredible things, right?
What
Stalin
did he
had
do that was incredible? I mean,
so he took a bunch of feudal peasants and put them through architecture, science, medicine, university degrees, basically 98% literacy. I think it was like 98% literacy, and then the highest 60 or something percent university. Now, not very valuable.
is that
because
attributable to Stalin or the Russian people? Like, I
no,
mean, like,
absolutely to Stalin. So Stalin did
yeah.
crazy things. Like he took the most educated people, didn't like them, put them in Siberia. Thought they were dangerous. He didn't want them to he didn't want culturally creative people, right? And like he had all these
One of
people
those people
killed.
was Solzhenitsyn. I mean, it got out of hand, right? Like,
It got completely out of hand because he's
Yeah.
like, there's no point in any art. Who cares? And then he's like, actually, you know what? Maybe we could use it. Let's grab that guy and we'll pull him out of the gulag and we'll use him for this or that. And that goes on for like 20 years essentially until eventually he gets, I think, killed. It depends on how you look at it, but Stalin dies after like 8 days and nobody wants to look for it, like to see if he even woke up. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
likely that he was probably eventually kind of just taken out. But it was such an important period because he set up these university systems that didn't exist before, stole all the land and resources, and had also, there's a huge conspiracy about the Rothschild banking, right? Because the money that came from the Soviet Union to take over, Russia was the last country to have a centralized bank, right?
Mm.
And so for it to become from the last country to have a centralized bank and a noble family to the most democratically economically democratic governance, where all property is up to the discretion of the greater
Of the
people
state, yeah.
of the state, right? Of the royal we. That is a completely, a nuanced revolution. That is not just a revolution, that's an evolution of banker capitalism. And so when you look at what happened before that, Rothschild was the finances that they were stolen. Okay, Stalin was arrested 3 times and escaped each time from these prisons, which is why he supposedly was able to build such effective gulags that were hard to escape from.
Oh,
He escaped.
Jesus.
But the
That's-
idea that he would help to escape these prisons and set up to take over Russia and to eliminate Trotsky.
Wait. Help to escape by how? By who?
By the banking cartels that wanted to establish Russia, the Soviet Union.
This has
as a
shades
banking-
of like the Illuminati trilogy where Dillinger is like breaking out of prison with like a finger under his jacket or the wooden pistol or whatever. I mean, there's like an aspect to this. So what were they giving him the keys? Were they giving him were they pulling up to the jail and like putting chains on the bars on the windows and yanking him off, and like were they jailbreaking him? Like how was that? What were they doing?
I'm not sure how like each 3 events went down. I'd
Wait a
have to
minute.
look
So
into that.
Stalin escaped from prison 3 times?
Yeah, he was sent away and escaped 3 times.
Man, no one escapes anymore. Are there
Yeah.
escapes anymore?
I mean, Timothy Leary is like the last one I think about. So, okay, the first escape was from Batumi in Georgia. He escaped in 1902 after serving only a few months, and he disguised himself and avoided the guards. The second escape, he was exiled to Siberia, and he managed to escape by walking across the frozen wilderness. The third escape, he was arrested in Azerbaijan and sent to Siberia for exile. And once more, he escaped by using forged documents and changing his appearance. Right? So that was 1902, 1904, and 1909. I've always been convinced that Stalin had great help from the most high sources, right? And it makes the most logical sense how he took over the Leninist revolution, which the Leninist revolution itself was already planned for by the French, right? And the French socialists had wanted to take over and experiment on a country. And Russia was the last one that they could do it to. It was just crazy too, because Russia was so gloriously powerful at that time. But there was such a push because it did have an intelligentsia, right? I think if you read, Tolstoy, like if you read War and Peace, you can see there's Freemasonry and there's libraries and there's a huge intelligentsia that's formed in Russia in the 19th century. So it's expectable that they'll have people that want to have revolution, right?
All right, yeah. I was just discussing this with my German friend Sven, a mutual of Ian. I'm not sure if you've ever met Sven Horvath, but very erudite, very, very intelligent guy. And he made the same point about communist China, where he's like, the first generation were like all peasants. The second generation have some money. The next generation will revolt because they're just, the economy's tanking and
Right.
there's no hope.
And
so,
also like the idea of manipulating this, because if you think like the fourth turning, like you can actually
right.
it's like, so there was the Mensheviks and there was the Decembrists and there were a number of movements that could have had revolutions, but the Bolsheviks suppressed and murdered people several times over to keep them from rioting and demonstrating because they didn't want anyone else to have a revolution except for the Bolsheviks.
These are counter-revolutionaries that they were
They were
preempting.
they were legitimate revolutionaries that they were preempting. Right? I don't think the Bolsheviks necessarily are false revolutionaries, but you know what I mean? They're not necessarily like of the people if they're coming from France and building this Engelian right? Like you've got this German and this French and it's crazy. It's crazy. These two Germans create this theory in France that ends up taking over Russia. While there are actual Russians that have ideas for self-determination, self-governance, right? Russia wasn't necessarily. It's very interesting that Russia went down the way it did. The family, the royal family were murdered, and that no local government was allowed to occur, and that the entirety of former, not just Russia, but 30 or 40 other states were disintegrated into this confederation. I don't know. It's pretty interesting, right?
That's extremely interesting, and you're very well read on that. I mean, it's like you're putting on a clinic right now, brother. I appreciate that. I have a lot to learn from you, and we all stand to benefit. All of you listening to this right now, if you haven't subscribed, click it. If you haven't shared this, do so now. Like Andreas is like he's a once in a lifetime type of guy. And
No,
we
bro,
were
no,
all we are all well served by it, and I thank you.
You're a
But
sweet man.
no, I mean we do we owe you a lot. I mean, at least to like share the podcast and blow it up, and then I like a lot of the things that you've been doing recently. The interview with Gennady, with Aubrey. We want to get Kevin Kane on here, Pat Ryan. We want to get who's another? There was another guy there in the trifecta. There's a whole bunch. Oh, Brian Bishop. You got to get Brian on. And
yeah, Brian would be
awesome.
cool. Brian would be cool. So what
Yeah.
about also? Did you want to talk about the Russian
Oh,
submarine that sunk in Crimean port?
when did that happen?
This was in August.
Okay.
So this was a while ago. So Russia's Navy diesel electric sub, which is not, their big nuclear one or anything like that. But these are pretty important subs too.
I was looking up the Typhoon class. Have you ever looked up the Typhoon class Russian sub? It had a sauna in it. I mean, this
Really?
thing is like, yeah. There's a photograph of like sailors standing on it, and
Dude, that's
they're
the
like a
best.
micro. It was I think
That actually
the
makes a lot of sense though, because you could be a way better soldier if you had a sauna. Actually, like I
I
could get
think
it.
so, right? I mean,
Yeah.
great for recovery, and I wonder if they had a cold plunge too.
Like, yeah, you basically don't need a shower if you can steam clean too. There's a lot of reasons why it probably would be like healthier. Like if you could probably keep your soldiers safer, sailors safer, health cleaner.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
So
like I was just
the-
looking at a video about these earlier because like they can't show you some of the regions, right? Like that's like the joke. So let's see. What is this? What is this part here? Sorry, you had something to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, there are multiple parts of nuclear submarines which are highly sensitive in terms of the classification. There are components that go onto the sub, which are like the topology, the geometry of those components are state secrets. They are tightly protected state secrets, and no one is allowed to see those things. And these boats are the submarine is like one of the most secretive, if not the most secretive, pieces of military technology that we make, that human beings create. You have certain aircraft, you have certain missiles, satellites, radar, but I mean the sub is like that's at a whole other level. The thresher, I could segue into like subsafe, like a lot of the modern naval like quality control emerged out of like certain disasters, like the OP5, which is the manual. The NavSub OP5 is an ordnance manual that it's the conduct of ordnance operations aboard a naval vessel. The OP5 is written in blood. It said it's written in blood, and you have like incidents like the Forrestal, where the famous video of John McCain like leaping out of his F4 Phantom before it erupts, before it explodes, and how that the Forrestal burned for days and days. Well, the subsafe program and all modern naval quality control for the manufacturer of ships, it comes out of the Thresher disaster. The I don't know, what is it? The USS Thresher. There was a submarine, the Thresher. I'm not sure if they have like a different identifier, don't they? The SAS Thresher or something, whatever. The USS Thresher was a submarine, and it was undergoing sea trials, and the thing fucking imploded on all of its crew. It had like 60 crew, I think, skeleton crew at the time. And after that, like there was a huge investigation. All this resource was poured in to making sure that this never happens again. And it's unfortunate people have. I hesitate to say people have to die. I don't want that to be the case. I want to chart a different course. But yeah, anyway, tangent.
I was thinking earlier today about the Valentine submarine. 1962 Soviet Vasily. That was good right there, right?
Oh yeah, dude, this guy's a legend, man.
Dude, and isn't he a fox? Like, come on, ladies.
Yeah, he is. Look at that
Look at this
sexy
guy.
beast.
Bro, yeah, seriously. So this guy saved the world, all right?
Yes, there were
That's
two
basically what it comes down
Russians
to.
that saved the world, right? It was this
Yeah.
guy and it was another guy.
Yeah, the other one is Valentin, I guess. This is Vasily, then Valentin, submarine, nuclear. Come on, this should be.
I mean, it literally happened like twice. Like one of them saw
what did he say? He saw there was like a simulation that was running and they didn't realize it or something. Or was that the American one? I think it happened with the Americans too at one point. There was a simulation
Yeah.
that was running. They thought it was real world. And they went
Oh
and the
yeah.
guy was like, hold on a second, pump your brakes. Yeah,
Oh
it's a sim.
wow. Brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot. We had that guy.
That's so crazy.
Isn't there a day dedicated to him? The transhumanists would celebrate his birthday or the day that the incident happened.
That would be smart. I will from now on celebrate like this because during October 1962. Oh man, it's October 17th. Happy days. Let's say it was today because like we don't even know, but
Oh
the
yeah,
accident. October
When did it
27th.
happen?
October 27th.
Yeah.
We still have time. So everybody, on 10 days, we're gonna celebrate this. The day
We're
that
gonna
the
drink
world.
vodka.
Yeah, because like realistically, we're living in another timeline because
Yes.
this is basically a world that shouldn't exist.
Yes.
Because we
yes.
should have all been in extreme
right.
Once one nuke fell, another nuke should have fallen. Everyone's nuke should have blocked. There was a lot of nukes in 1962. They would
Is
have
this
all
like a
gone off.
quantum suicide
Yeah.
situation?
This is like a Mandela reality that exists, probably,
Yeah.
right? Because of this guy.
Yes, as we collapse upward into higher order. Yeah, no, yeah, this guy is the man, and
Yeah.
yeah, we should celebrate his memory.
Dude, Vasily.
He's still alive somehow.
All right, do you want to talk about subs or do you want to talk about viruses? Because that's the next article.
Man, yeah, we should talk about, dude, that fucking virus came from that lab, and we knew it and knew it.
Oh my god,
said
would
it,
you
said it.
settle down? Would you settle the freak down? He's obviously talking about the bubonic plague, and he means the Italian plague factory island.
Okay, you see this guy right here? Pause it
Yeah.
for a second. This
guy?
is Mike Gallagher. He was a representative from Wisconsin, and
Mhm.
he was instrumental in leading the charge against the Chinese Communist Party because it did feel like at some point, like deep state elements were just like in bed, and like, you know, commercial interests were kind of dictating this like softball approach to this totalitarian authoritarian regime that's like exporting its authoritarianism to the world, and, you know, uses slave labor and runs slave mines in the Congo. And we had like this nice arrangement set up, right? I mean, I'm being sarcastic, but like Western industrialists could turn a blind eye and say they could have culpable deniability. Oh, we're not practicing slave labor. Meanwhile, like they're single sourcing everything from a country that is. Mike Gallagher was instrumental in like kind of like spearheading, especially deep in the Biden administration era. I think it was like the second and third year. Really spearheading the anti. I don't want to say anti because it wasn't really anti. Anti implies that it was like somehow justified or whatever. It was. It was the opposition voice to the Chinese Communist Party, and he would give voice to like everything that was going on, from the fentanyl to the IP theft to the fucking slave labor to the you know, the intelligence operations that are being conducted through TikTok and things of that to brainwash our children into cutting their dicks off and shit. He was crucial. And then all of a sudden, Mike Gallagher announces he's not running for re-election. This was a guy who had all kinds of inertia. And all of a sudden, I mean, he was on the House Armed Services Committee. This guy's a decorated Marine Corps veteran, just the top of the top. Just
what's the deal?
That's what I want to know. I mean, like, why did he suddenly like? And it wasn't like, I mean, he like exited stage left like quickly. I don't even know what he's doing now. I think he's out of office. But it was that's kind of an enigma. And the reason why I bring it up and I talk about it is because I like the guy. I genuinely like Mike Gallagher. I think he was a fucking fighter. He was exactly the kind of voice that we needed, especially when Bannon was getting
railed, and been sentenced to prison on bullshit charges and everything. Because Bannon's another clarion voice, too.
Gallagher announced in 2024 in February that he would in February 2024 that he would not run for re-election in the House of Representatives. He announced his announcement came amid his outspoken criticism of House Republican majority impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. He later clarified that he would leave Congress in April. The timing of his resignation means that the seat will remain vacant for the remaining 8 months of the congressional term.
This
As
guy
it will
was
be too late under Wisconsin law to hold a special election before the fall. What? Why would you leave then?
Yeah.
After his resignation, Gallagher joined the defense contractor Palantir as
No
head of
shit.
defense. There we go. Okay.
Oh, okay, he's with Palantir. Good
He's
deal.
doing okay. He's doing okay.
That's cool. I mean, I'm nominally supportive of Palantir's mission. I'm a little
I
bit.
mean, Peter Thiel, is he still involved?
Yeah,
or
it's
what?
a Teal Mafia. It is.
Say
But
it
I
like
mean,
that,
we
whatever.
can't pick our champions. You know what I mean? Like, the thing with Palantir though, that CEO, like I thought he was very based, and then he came out and he said that he was voting for Kamala, and I was like, what are you talking about?
All right. If anyone understands, I really want to, and I'm just waiting for it. So if you guys ever want to bring up and explain, we're happy to. I just want that. I really want to understand so bad.
What, Palantir?
No. Just like the
In
Kamala
general.
thing. The Kamala thing. Like, I can't watch CNN and understand it. So I just want somebody who can make it make sense. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I can understand a lot of things.
Right.
So it's just really frustrating
Yeah, it's so bad
to not
It's like-
understand something. Like
It's
how.
so artificial. It's so, like, who is buying it? Like, people are buying it. No one's buying it.
I know people that do. They won't even explain it to me.
Right. Yeah, because it's
like,
it's a theology. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a theology. The whole thing is the wokeism, the progressivism. That's really regressivism. Like,
but regressivism sounds like trad, right? I don't know. Like, this is the thing. Like,
Yeah, well,
I
it's supposed
really
to be, but
want.
it's not.
I am such a sympathetic person.
Mhm.
I really want to be able to understand, because if I could understand, then I could be like, oh, okay, that's what you feel from it. I feel that, and so I can choose between that feeling and the feeling I get from this. But if you don't even get to, it's like not hearing music. So how am I even supposed to know if I hate the song? I can't. I literally, it's inaudible. There's
an
nothing
enigma.
there. It's very frustrating.
What did Biden? What? Someone did lip reading at the recent Ethel Kennedy funeral. Obama is like talking to Biden. Allegedly,
Right.
Biden says to Obama, "She's not as strong as me." Obama says, "I agree," or "You're right," something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
it looked pretty bad.
anyway, it's speculation. I don't know. It's so weird, and it's like they're so out of ideas. I mean,
So-
it just
I didn't want to be like, this is one of those ones you have to tiptoe around on YouTube. So I was just gonna like point out that the Wall Street Journal said, which is just crazy, right? That the Wall Street Journal's Richard A. Mueller said that World War III will be fought with viruses, is what they said. Crazy, right? Will be, not even maybe, will be. A two-front biological and cyber attack could lead to a U.S. defeat before we know what hits us, right? That's kind of the inevitable, and they're focused so clearly on Putin and Russia, and maybe they'll talk a bit about Europe. I don't think the article's going to go into
when was this published?
2023. This is last year.
Yeah, so this is like I don't know, like I mean, this is like established PLA doctrine.
Yeah, for years.
And they were early in unrestricted warfare, and there was some other brief that came out by some Chinese communist general, PLA general, who said that biology is absolutely the fifth domain of war, and that they would have no qualms with engineering viruses and releasing them, and so
All right,
yeah.
So
I mean,
How about see here, what do I got? I got tool documentation. This might be a little deep. Let's go
What is that?
for
What is
uh
recon tool? Is it an OSINT tool?
yeah, it's a Kali tool, but like you have to like install it. But it's basically useful for scraping data. I guess we could recommend it if you guys use Linux. Or if you, I'm sure there's a way. I was gonna look into a way that you could run this easily with like, there should be a tool that you can run
Mhm.
this on Windows or Mac if you don't already know how to use Homebrew. With Homebrew, you should be able to, with a Mac, go to your terminal and install Recon directly just by brew. Just do sudo brew. But I mean, if you don't use Linux, just look up Recon NG, and it's very useful for um, reporting, exploiting, discovering models. And you can figure out also, there's another one I had open for you, which was Shodan. Have you seen Shodan? It's the world's first search engine for internet connected devices. So it can help you find devices all over the world and where they're connected. It's very useful to see.
Interesting.
Yeah. Kind of snoopy.
Oh yeah.
So then let's see. NOSci.
Naval
.org.
Open Source Intelligence. This was the website that I would always go to. We were talking about favorite sources, open source intelligence.
Yeah,
this was
one
it.
was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna see if they had anything. Well, today they got this article: PLA Navy recruiting more carrier-borne pilots with loosened criteria. The Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy has loosened the criteria for recruiting pilots for carrier-based aircrafts by including young candidates who have received vision-corrected surgeries. I don't think that's a huge deal, especially if they have so many dang planes that are super cheap, or better yet, drone.
Yeah.
Right. As long as they don't have to fly their own planes, which is basically where we're nearly at with their with their shit right now.
Look up PLAN maybe on X. Look up PLAN what do you call it? Drill Taiwan surrounded. This is happening as we speak. The PLAN, the People's Liberation Army Navy, which is like whatever the NATO designation, but it's like here's our problem. I just want to make a general point about how we interface and how we apprehend this thing called the communist China. Is that Confucius said the first step to wisdom is getting things by their right names. And one of the things with the communist China thing, number one, we absolutely, and this goes even double for journalists, have to stop referring to it as China. It's one of the sneakiest things that they could ever do after the betrayal in 1973 when we let the commies take over the seat in the Security Council. We started referring to them synonymously as China, and that gives them way too much grace. Like you need to be, in order to deal with this thing, it's a problem, man. I'm telling you right now, I believe it in my heart.
I feel like maybe if Americans try to like if they started calling, because the United States of America and the Mexico of America, Canada is a part of the North America. There's also South America. So if they started saying, Canada was America, and they meant it,
right.
That's kind of the way I guess it is, because it's like, yeah, Canada is part of the American experience. It's not part of the United States of America, right? But the United States of America isn't probably. I think a lot of people would say the same about the United States of America. Does the United States of America represent Mexico and Canada and the rest? No. So saying China is, the PRC is wild. That's freaking wild, right? Like, not only is it weird to try to include Tibet with the PRC,
right,
but to say that the PRC is the all of the Chinese experience, that's pretty crazy.
That's bold, right? And
it's pretty bold.
It's bold, and then it happens so surreptitiously where we all have just taken for granted the fact, oh yeah, we just it's China, the China.
Yeah, all
It's
right.
like
So
it's not.
John's asking right now. It's like, what are the side effects? Because like we're making it sound like it's a freaking abstraction, but where it's not, because we're talking about an island that's being invaded and people dying, right? So like, what's the deal going on? Plan is trying to do what now?
They're surrounding the Republic of China and Taiwan with ships. This is all prelude to war, right? I mean, drills turn into real
153
world.
aircraft.
Yeah, they turn into real world events pretty quickly, and you can. I mean, it would be classic PRC tactic to under the guise of it being a drill, let their guard down, and then you go in and you begin the invasion or what have you. If they do invade, it
So
would.
let's just also explain, Joe, what was happening in 2021 was not the same as what we're seeing right now. Like there was definitely drones that were flying around Taiwan, and there were sims that were run in 2021, and we talked about that with
Mhm.
Eddie even on Sync Tank. But that's not nearly the same as where we're at now. Right now we have 24-hour synchronous 153 aircraft. You have 12, I think it was, right? Surrounding sea vessels, and then there's God only knows in terms of submarines, but there's so much more activity that's not just for a drill, because
Yeah.
drones are one thing because they're showing you like, okay, here's what we would do when
hmm
in 2024 on October 17th, in the hunt for Red October,
hmm
right? Like this is a perfect moment for this to happen because the election's happening. There's so much else happening. Like this is basically I think this is. I hate to be like that because I've said that before and been wrong. I don't want to be like some friends of mine who've yelled worldwide civil war, but like,
No, brother.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could be a thing, right? Like this week. That's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Look up Ada's incursions over time. If you look up Taiwanese air defense, I don't know what the I stands for. Zone Z ADIZ. Look up ADIZ incursions over time. It will show us a graph, and you'll see how the number of incursions into Taiwanese Republic of China airspace by Commie PRC, People's Liberation Army, Air Force jets has increased precipitously. It's like remarkable. I mean, they go from like, is this a graph of it? Yeah, here you go. Just what is it? 2024. Look at 2024 versus
So as soon as when
2023.
President Lai is inaugurated, it starts a rapid increase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, this is the latest and greatest. This is a great chart. So, I mean, you just look at that, and it's clear that they have a bone to pick. I mean, you could say comparatively, but the year's not even done yet, right? I mean, look at 2023 was done. They peaked at like what 1600 something, so 1700. So
So
it's
yeah,
concerning.
there's a bit more um the
Is that the
amount I
ghost of
mean
Kiev
the,
at the top?
the amount of energy though that's going into this, like it's very expensive to set up this right now. So it's plausible that it's all just sort of a drill or something like that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not looking super good. And there's a lot of reasons why it looks like Taiwan. I mean, like, think about, we've said it before, what's wrong with losing Taiwan? A lot,
Mm-hmm.
especially in
Mm-hmm.
terms of quantum computers, the technology. We've done a lot to move our technology back to the United States in the last 4 years, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not enough. I mean, really, it was
Mm-hmm.
like there was actually a lot more effort 8 years ago or 7 years ago. Like during the former administration, there was effort, but even with Nvidia and everybody trying to move to Apple moved to North Carolina. a lot of our stuff's still in Taiwan. And so to kind of lose Taiwan would be like, well, like Ford losing his factories in Russia, right? It's the same thing. Well,
Yeah, so this is a concern, tracking this, and then I don't know. I mean, where else do we go in the world? It seemed like we covered. Oh, we
Yeah.
didn't talk about Israel.
That's true. I gotta pull up Israel. Hold on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just in terms of like the history of tradecraft, the beeper operation. I'm curious to know, like, what did they officially refer to it as?
38 minutes ago, Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was killed in Gaza, right? So, believed to be the chief architect of the military group of October 7th, 2023 terror attack that set off the current war in Gaza. So this is sort of like their Osama bin Laden character.
Yeah. Did you see the video?
No.
The IDF put out a video of this guy Sinwar. Literally, his name is Sinwar. Sinwar is sitting in a building that's been bombed out, shelled out, and he's sitting there in a chair. And they didn't know who this guy was. They thought it.
His name is literally Sinwar. Well, that's just like too silly.
Yeah, Sinwar. It's like too on the nose. But they
It's a little too on the nose.
He's sitting.
Oh my god! And they're using the drone.
Yeah. This is the video.
What?
This is the video.
If
So
you
that's
thought that Desert Storm was cool, like you need to watch Israeli military footage.
Oh my god! This drone flies in. It's surveying this. I think this is after they had shelled it or whatever. He's sitting there. That's him right there. He has a stick in his hand. There he is, Yahya Sinwar.
Oh my god.
He takes the stick and throws it. It's like a katana. He throws it at the drone. The drone operator deftly, counters, avoids getting hit. And then look, it even has like object detection. I'm not sure. Look at it, just flies right in there. And then they bomb it after this. I think a tank shoots it, and he's dead. I mean, the way that the IDF and Mossad has gone about decapitating Hezbollah and just dismembering Hamas and keeping Iran right on the back foot. Like they're dropping bombs inside Iran, though not at Iranians. They are dropping them on Hezbollah or whatever. I think Iran gets the idea, right? And that in terms of tradecraft, that beeper operation is going to be studied for forever. That is like a masterclass. And Mossad is just one after the other with these. Did you read about the exploding table at the underground facility in Iran?
Let's pull this up. Exploding table.
Mossad is like what I wish our CIA was. Forgive me for being a little bit like, demoralized by seeing these woke CIA commercials and the recruitment and everything. But it's just like kind of embarrassing. And Mossad is like, man, that is motivating to see an intelligence service that on point. Say what you will about the Israelis. If you hate the Israelis, if you nominally support the Israelis or whatever, I mean that what Mossad is doing is like that's a level of tradecraft that has just not been achieved.
Right. But also, I don't know. There's some like it just feels very Orwellian. Like I hope that it's more real than it is because like what am I missing? This is too crazy. Okay. So yeah, Israel though there was more to it. We can get into more of Israel. I think it's also interesting. Zelensky says he wants to make Ukraine the next Israel, and how much of this is about the connection between the two. I think that's
Mm.
kind of. Do you think there's a what
Yeah,
about
yeah, there is
finance
a
there?
connection, right? I mean, there's the oligarchs.
Yeah.
There's the oligarch connection, and these oligarchs are like playing these countries like pieces on a chessboard, aren't they? I mean, they're like Zelensky is clearly not. I don't know. I get the
I
sense
mean,
that
using 10,000 North Koreans is straight up again with like talk about Phantom Menace. That's Attack of the Clones. Like this is again like when I'm talking about like a brain drain and a tech drain. This is
Mm.
wild, bro.
yeah, this is quite the proxy war. You know, I mean, it's wild to think that U.S. special forces and just regular troops who would join the Ukrainian military to fight for Ukraine were shooting at, Russians and Americans shooting at each other. We had other close calls too in Syria. I mean, we would play chicken, because there were Russian forces operating there. They have one of their, Russia has very few foreign military bases. They have a submarine repair facility in Vietnam that they still maintain, and they have the Tartarus in Syria. They have a naval base up there, and they were operating in northern Syria, and so were we. We were uninvited. They were invited by Assad. We, choose not to recognize the legitimacy of Assad, and our guys were like racing Russians, in our military SUVs, and we're racing them in their military SUVs, and we're like bumping into each other. I mean, it's just it's crazy to think about that the prospect of North Koreans fighting North Koreans in Ukraine. That's wild.
I mean, it's like football teams. It's crazy
Yeah.
where we're at with the military. But yeah, it's also so I forget who said this the other night on my show. But credit to them, whoever they were, that that this military today is being fought. It's more retro. It's like the way they used to fight in the Prussian times with little figurines on
Mm,
tables.
mm,
That's become the way of things again, like more than
mm.
ever, which is really funny because you'd think that we were going to evolve directly back into guerrilla chaotic warfare, but even that ended up on the board, right?
Mm.
In a lot of
So
ways.
wait, the Prussian
Like
way
strategy
of
games.
war was were they really? Is this where we get the toy soldier? Is this
Yeah, for sure.
okay? Interesting. So this is a Napoleonic War era.
Dude, like rich people with their
Mm,
little figurines on a I mean, I
mm,
think it probably comes from Arabs originally. I don't think it actually comes from the Europeans, but it was
mm,
definitely used by the Prussians, Austro-Hungarians, and Germans, and it was very popular into the beginning of World War II until it was no longer as popular because they had other things that were better. But it's always still been the thing to do in a lot of ways.
So this is where we get the action figure. This is
Yeah,
like the lineage of the GI Joe
yeah,
is in
sure.
some Prussian model maker's workshop for
But
some
also
general.
for some like usually for like a prince too, because the prince they were
Yeah,
teaching
right,
him
right.
how to move his because
Maneuver forces.
he's born to maneuver forces. Yeah.
Hmm.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to talk about. Andreas, I want to thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm looking forward to doing it again in the
Yeah.
future. And
Thank you for being here, man. I just wanted to make sure we cover like just the last couple of things. Is there
oh
anything
yeah,
else
yeah,
that
for
we had
sure.
open? But I think we're pretty close to good. We talked about China building capacity to strike Taiwan, and we know that that's happening probably this week. I think we're probably yeah. That's pretty much it. Actually, you're right. Everyone should pray. That's my
Yes,
pitch.
yes, absolutely.
That's the way to go. Is there anything else
Absolutely.
that you were thinking you wanted to say to the audience?
Yeah, I just want to, I want to pray to
what I believe as God, which is that, the sum totality of all the things. I'm not much for the generator God. I'm more of like a panentheist in that sense, but like every last piece and particle and subatomic whatever throughout the entire universe, that we all, exist as one. I hope that, we continue to move onward and upward and do miracles and heal the sick and the infirm and resurrect the dead and live forever and find fulfillment. Um, you know, avert nuclear holocaust. That would be good. And yeah, I wish you all a good night and God bless you all. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.